So Bitnation used blockchain to tackle refugee problems. And the way that they did that was because basically they had an emergency response team. And EDEP is quite familiar with this as well. For when there's a disaster that happens or there's refugees that are fleeing a nation, oftentimes they don't have identity, like a passport or a family identity card. It gets lost, and the records are hard to keep. And so then they basically are nationless. They're identityless, and they don't have a way to be categorized, accounted for, etc. And so Bitnation made a blockchain solution for refugees to register their identity on a blockchain. So basically, your identity gets registered on a database, a shared database, and from peer to peer, we validate. We say, okay, yes, I'm Avi's sister, and this is Avi's cousin, and we validate our relations so that we start to build our identity networks. And what they did is not only did they get an identity, but they also on their got cheap smartphones and got a basically a bank account to hold their crypto, and as well as a debit card, a plastic debit card that they could use to go and buy things with. So that was linked to their cryptocurrency wallet.
So no cash.
So no cash, and also no, imagine how hard it would be to do that in rupiah or dollars, right? How would you set up bank accounts, identity systems, and have them be able to buy and sell things very quickly? It'd be really hard and really complicated and quite costly. So with the use of this technology, we can actually speed up that process and get people empowered quicker. Yeah. So it's a pretty cool concept, huh? What do you guys think?
Sounds brilliant. How we get with the different currencies have
The different values?
Yeah.
Currency.
Yeah.
Currencies.
So Bitnation likes to be a bit crypto, not attached to only one cryptocurrency. So you can, with any wallet, cryptocurrency wallet, you can hold multiple different currencies of your choice. So it's really up to the user which currency you want to hold. And for example, in Indonesia, and many other countries, there's always an exchange, like a money changer basically, where you can change your currencies for different currencies, your different cryptos. Sometimes you go crypto to rupiah, sometimes you go rupiah to crypto, sometimes you do crypto to crypto exchanges. So that's up to you, it's up to the user and what's kind of in demand and being accepted as payment in your small community. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Ish? Okay. We'll keep going.
So that card, the plastic card, which is debit card,
Yeah.
who's issuing that?
In this case, they partnered with Visa. Yeah.
Oh.
Because you still need because, let's say who was it, what's the name of these people?
Bitnation.
Yeah, is it Bitnation? Who's
Yeah.
Okay. So let's say Bitnation is allows to identify the refugees on a blockchain, but then how can that card be accepted to be paid? You still can't be a Bitnation card, can it?
No, but it's a special.
So you still have Visa.
Yeah, this one was Visa, and they made where does it say it? They made a special arrangement so that would be accepted in this was test cased in the European Union. Yeah. So you make relations and partnerships.
In EU for the refugees of the EU.
Yeah, like Syrian refugees going to the European Union.
But then it could be used in any country of the EU.
No.
The EU is big.
Yeah, it's an EU partnership.
Right.
Yeah. So that has lots of usability. And so, perhaps that's something, in Indonesia, for example, that could potentially be developed over time with the right people and the right partners to make that happen. All right, so that was I just wanted to start that presentation with some really practical, tangible examples of how it's starting to be used. And even though it's really early days, there's still some use cases that are really being developed and worked on. So I think for me, the attitude is that it's such early tech. We don't know where it's exactly going to go, but we are the ones that actually define that. We have the ability to help define that by putting our ideas, putting our problems on the table and seeing how we can solve them. So, I'm going to talk a little bit more. Cool? Yeah. All right. So, this is about Bitnation, this video. And just know that, Bitnation is really trying to tackle the issue of nation states. So saying that basically we each can actually be our own sovereign body and we do not necessarily need to attach to a nation state. And of course that idea is a bit radical. Especially, for me, I come from Singapore and the US. I spent time in Indonesia. I was like, wow, okay, this concept is kind of mind-stretching. Mm-hmm. So I just want to give you that as a disclaimer before playing this video, because just stretch your mind and open it to the possibilities, but then also know that technology starts in baby steps, and I showed you those practical examples to show you those kind of baby steps too.
Before nations, before borders, there was the Pangea supercontinent. Since then, the world has been divided by tectonic shifts, widening oceans, and stifling politics. Nation-states are crumbling under the weight of local and global challenges that they seem incapable of solving. Rather than embracing a borderless world and increasing personal freedoms, governments and multilateral organizations have overseen a surge in bureaucracy, protectionism, and ever greater intrusions into our personal lives. To prevent a drift towards tyranny, we need drastic change. Pangea is Bitnation's decentralized jurisdiction platform. Using Pangea, you can build voluntary nations, agree contracts, and resolve disputes with other citizens, and access the services you need. This is our vision of jurisdiction as a service, a global market for governance services. The Pangea Arbitration Token, or PAT, is an Ethereum-based in-app token that powers the Pangea platform. When you create a contract, complete a contract, or resolve a dispute on Pangea, you receive non-tradable reputation tokens through Lucy, our AI bot. Accumulating reputation tokens earns you tradable PAT tokens. This ensures that you can't buy a good reputation or acquire it through popularity, but if you earn one, you will be rewarded. Imagine a world where people can freely choose which voluntary nations and jurisdictions they want to be part of. A world where voluntary nations offer a choice of services under their own laws and policies and compete for citizens in a free market that rewards good governance. You too can be part of the future of governance by joining the Pangea token sale. Welcome to the Internet of Sovereignty. Welcome to Pangea.
All right. So, the vision is pretty wide for Bitnation in terms of asking us to really rethink, like, what is being part of a nation? What is a nation state? And how can we actually look at it through a different lens? So, for example, this question is like, can you choose your governance provider like you choose your cell phone provider? Like, is it that easy, as in like getting on an app and saying, I belong to a nation that, has rules that allows me to smoke anywhere I want to smoke? Or, that's a very minor example, but like, there's this thing is that like there are little communities that govern itself by its own kind of social rules that sometimes don't fully align with the rules and the governance structures of a nation as a whole, right? And we even see that example within Indonesia, right? Like look at the national government, and then look at all the different levels of government that actually, both formal and informal, that we see forming here, right? We see very much on a local level that there are its own specific rules, laws, governance, ways of, by governance I mean ways of, handling disputes, ways of distributing resources, ways of accounting for identity, ways of basically utilizing money and financial systems. So the question then is, well, the idea is that blockchain is not just for money, right? So we've seen all these examples of how blockchain is not just for money. Money is a great use case, but there's also a lot of other things. So, this guy, for example, is a digital nomad. He travels all around the planet, and I can relate to that too. And I'm like, how do I even monitor my activities, or I have this passport, but then I also live and I participate in all these different types of communities. There's ways of, like, for example, marriage being documented in one country's state system. There's actually now marriages that are being recorded on a blockchain. And so there's certification services and notary services that are happening. And Bitnation has actually partnered with the government of Estonia to start handling some of their government processes and recording processes, and to provide notary services on a blockchain, which is really interesting. So it's not that this needs to be totally separate from nation states. We can actually start working together and making systems better and improving them. So yeah, just a bit of little history. In the past, and currently, nation states are kind of this group of superpowers that kind of make a lot of our own decisions, and create decisions that might not necessarily be ones that we agree with. Sometimes there's a lot of war, there's a lot of injustice that we face, corruption, taxes, things like that. The thing is that there's no competition here. So when we get competition into the mix, we see that systems actually start to improve themselves. Because it's like, oh, they're doing it, I better do it better. This is the demand of the people, I can increase it. And so there actually is, reason to have competition and have alternatives to start pushing the boundaries and pushing the progress and creating incentive for better services. So this guy, he wants tools that people can use to manage themselves as society. And so people, rather than people who just have the money or the power or the status to make decisions, that it gets brought down to a more grassroots and local level, where we can kind of design the tools and use the tools that we need. And, as a community at Taman Petanu, for example, as an intentional community, we're also curious as to how can we utilize blockchain technology and Bitnation technology for our group. And so it's interesting because Bitnation actually has a whole list of proposals, of ideas of what people want. And so people put their ideas up on this website, and all these people start voting for it. Which one? Yes, I agree. No, I don't agree. Here's my inputs, things like that. And so basically we're driving the theory forward and driving the technology forward by doing that kind of thing. So, Bitnation really encourages people to start thinking about what are some use cases that you want to see in your community? What are the biggest problems, and what are some ideas on what could solve it? For example, with the farmers, they had the issue in their cooperative, right? Of all, the value of the produce reducing, there's a lot of corruption, how can we bring more transparency to it? That's one idea. At Taman Petanu, we're thinking about things okay, we want to create some micro enterprises. And from these micro enterprises, we want a fund that people can put money into, and that we can transparently and maybe even automated map where that money goes to spend on the micro enterprises, and where the profits go. When the profits come in, how does that get distributed? for example. That's one of our use cases. So there's plenty of use cases, and what we want to do now is just start listing them down. And so I'm, as a Bitnation ambassador, I've been helping to kind of draw out some of these ideas and hearing from ambassadors around the world. There's about 55 ambassadors around the world from different countries and different groups, and we're all putting our ideas into documents, shared documents, and kind of looking at, all right, around the world, like in Brazil, in Kenya, in America, in where else? I'm talking to a lot of different European nations. What are the problems these communities are facing, and how can we find solutions to empower these communities better? Yeah. So again, talking about identity, bad passports, refugees, and the unbanked. And this was an interesting one, is if the gray economy was a nation, it would actually be the second largest economy in the world. So, there's like the black market, but then there's actually kind of the gray economy, where things are not really fully documented into nation state systems. If that gray economy was put all together, it'd be the second largest in the world. So there's a lot of activity happening that's going undocumented, unregulated, without the empowerment of all these technology tools and things like that. So there's a huge opportunity here. So Bitnation is actually working on a passport. So we talked about kind of issues with identity systems, and it's a large topic that we can't cover all the bases right now. But one of the things that Bitnation is doing is testing to see, actually, can we create, if you're going to create a micronation or a Bitnation of your own, or what they call, a decentralized, borderless, virtual nation, that actually in this app for Bitnation, there's already many, many nations that have been created. Can you issue a passport for your nation? And will that passport actually be accepted? Can you actually travel with this passport? And so they've created this passport, and they have a legal team that is formed to help people utilize this passport to see if they can cross nation-state borders using it. And so they've done a lot of study in the law, and there's actually areas where there's loopholes within the law that actually allows for passports, especially diplomatic passports, to be utilized like so. And so we're really at the cutting edge, the bleeding edge of this kind of development. But there's a lot of really smart people, very passionate people working on these kinds of solutions. So yeah, that's the passport. It has it's registered on the blockchain. Your identity gets registered. You get a QR code, same like the refugees as well, you can get for your identity system. And not only that, you can use blockchain notarization for things like birth certificates, contracts, land titles, business deals, things like that. So imagine when I heard about land titles, I thought about Indonesia as well, and how many issues with land titles Indonesia faces. Proving that a land certificate actually belongs to somebody, transferring it and making sure it goes into the right hands, making sure that it gets documented clearly, and that those documents just don't go missing at the notary's office or in fires or whatever. I was just like, wow, imagine if that system got upgraded to a blockchain system that was transparent, you cannot change it, it's immutable, so it's anti-censorship, anti-corruption, and it's clear, and it's very cost-effective to implement. Because imagine how many guys sitting at the land office or the BPN land office, how many people it takes to employ and manage this, and they've got stacks of paper on their desk and they're moving things around. The cost of doing that and the inefficiency and the errors versus a system like this. I'm just there's all different names. So for example, we started Taman Patano Eco Neighborhood, and we registered our nation on the blockchain.
What's the name of your nation?
It's Taman Patano.
Okay.
So the nation that you start can represent either a virtual group, or a geographical group, or an interest group. So it really depends on what kind of nation you want to start.
What's the goal?
And I'll get there.
What's the goal of the Taman Patano? Why do you create this?
The reason why Tuampatanu is involved in it is that we want to be involved in the early stage conversations and development of new technology that can be applied to intentional communities. And so it's an experiment. It's like a living laboratory nation, the same like our neighborhood as well. Like our neighborhood is kind of this living laboratory experiment of community development and living. And so, sorry?
Here. The village.
Well, same like, you know, how permaculture thinks in zones. Like, you know, it's an experiment on a small local level. It's within our families and communities even, just right in within Tuampatanu. We interact with our wider neighborhood, such as EDA Foundation, the village, and then
not just the Tuampatanu itself, but and its environment.
And its environment. I mean, nothing exists without existing within a wider environment, and part of the Tuampatanu mission is to also serve as a model for other communities around the world, so that we connect to the World Wide Web, both virtually and in person and physical form. Yeah.
And I was part of that, like, for instance, like, you, Melissa, I know it's like virtual people, but it's a community, understand the concept, but then you have to be member as an individual to that. How does it work?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, in the Bitnation app, you mean? Or in Tuampatanu itself?
So maybe just to add on that, we're kind of like a unique communities where half of us lives in the neighborhood and half of us is abroad. So there's a lot of governance activities happening within. You know, like if we wanna make a poll or if we wanna decide on something, and so to kind of like maintain it automatically and like each people have its equal fair share. Those who stays far would have an equal share with those who stay here. Blockchains, the Bitnations would be like, we find it, you know, it's good to try out because we're like spread all over. But we need, we have like one similarity in developing the neighborhood.
Yeah. And
yeah, you know, same.
But as an individual, you register. That's my question. You register as an individual.
yeah, you download basically every one of us can download the app from the Play Store. You create your account as a user, as an individual. And once you get onto the app as an individual, you can join different nations or create your own.
But you need to be accepted by a moderator or maybe
No. That's the decentralization of
yeah,
it.
if I want to be part of, I don't live here, I live in
Yeah.
example, I can be part of your
If you want, so each nation has its own settings. So when you
we're
create a
thinking
setting,
about that.
yeah, when you create a setting, you can say anyone can join, or
but you still decide, yeah, like if you say it's only people from Kimido, example, yeah, just saying it's Kimido
Yeah.
village, I can't access, but you have to create the setting for all Bali for me to accept.
yeah, you can choose as what makes the most sense for your group, for your nation or community. And we're trying. That's one of the topics. Is like, you know, we have members of the community that actually live there or have land there, but then we have friends of the community as well that actually participate and contribute a lot. So actually, you can create different privilege levels and access levels of, let's say we want to use Bitnation for voting. So because there's a voting protocol. So if we need to vote as a nation for something we will decide on, maybe a member who lives there and has invested money into growing their land and house there, maybe they have more weight in the vote than somebody who lives outside and visits or works there, or you know what I mean. But everyone has contribution that can be made. Everyone has a say. Because I know in Tuampatanu there's people that are part of the community that I trust and I want to be involved in some of the decision making of our environment.
For example, like we live in our own properties, you know, and I contribute a lot as well. So what I'm thinking is like I would love to be part of the nations, but then how?
Yeah.
There's
Are you part of it? Are you part of it?
no yet.
Not yet.
But
We
like-
just started with like
Yeah.
a small group of us.
But this will be very interesting because, for example, if we implement it for LGBT community around the world,
Yeah.
where some of them like feel terrified in their own country and need to be belong somewhere else.
Exactly.
Yeah, like for instance, Indonesia, it's
Yeah, for
hard. It's
example.
hard because it's very hard. That community is very ostracized.
Exactly.
Not like in many countries, but it's not easy.
So it's kind of like we can be ourselves in our own nations.
Yeah, and you can create your own systems and rights. Because if you're refused to by your nation state to be able to have access to like legal systems, any kind of property rights, ownership, things like voting. But then you can create your own sub-nation that actually does so that you have more empowerment. Yeah. So the LGBT community is definitely one of the use cases that have come up for this.
Especially when you talk about marriage contracts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And so then how do you recognize that and how do you for example, the LGBT community is just like if you are not recognized as a legal partner, you lose a lot of rights. For example, like even in the hospital, for example. Would like to continue in a conversation about this kind of stuff. Can you let me know too? So I can always set up another event. I'll do it with some time anyways.
Sorry, just because first time today hear about Bitnation.
Yeah.
Is that that's a concept already exists? Who is the people behind it, and is that something that apparently you present and want to adopt? Like, why did you choose it?
Yeah, so Bitnation is an organization. I got introduced to it through my friends. My friend that's involved in it. There's a team of people. They're based all around the world. Come from Europe originally. There's already 10,000 citizens. There's already 2,000 open source coding contributors. They've already established a bunch of virtual embassies and consulates, as well as written, more than 200,000 lines of code. They've notarized 5,000 contracts. They've, this is a little bit of the app. That's the older version now, but it's quite similar. You can see all the nations, and you can see your wallet, how much cryptocurrency you hold. You can send cryptocurrency to and from people. So this is how you create a nation. It's literally through an app you create a nation, and you choose your government structure and the types of settings that we were talking about. Your legal code, the services that are offered, what type of government you are. And so yeah, the nation has a plan to reach 500,000 citizens in 2018. And so, like you said, can you join as an individual? Once you join as an individual, you're listed as a citizen, basically, on Bitnation, but then also in all the other nations that you decide to join. And so they want to create these 60,000 citizens in incubated dApps. So dApps are decentralized applications. So they're different applications, like we said, okay, maybe there's a voting app. Maybe there's a land registration app. Those types of things are decentralized applications. They want to create a bunch of those. And they want to create airdrops and bounties to encourage people to participate and be active. And this is their roadmap on what they are developing. So in the beginning of Q1 on the left, it's how do you create nations, how do you create chats and agreements and arbitrations. We're kind of in that level of Q2, Q3 of the chat 2.0. So again, it's really, really early stages, and so we can only start really by putting together small implementable technology. They're updating the app all the time, but really what you guys are doing are being part of development. So we start in theory, theorizing ideas and things like that in applications, and then bringing it down to practical. There's a Bitnation team. Yeah, it's a big team. And they've been actively doing stuff since 2011, or 2012. But a lot in Europe and Amsterdam, France. But literally, if you go, I'm watching videos of ambassadors that are around the world everywhere. The last video I just watched was of an ambassador in Nigeria. So it's a distributed team. That's the thing with blockchain. It's everyone's kind of distributed all over the place. Lots of developers. They've been mentioned in a lot of different news publications as well. Bitnation. So if you want, if you're interested, you can download the app. And if we meet again, we can actually do the app downloads, and I can actually send you some expat. The name of the tokens are expats. I can send you some of the tokens, and we can actually start to play with it. And you'll have tokens, and that'll help you to join nations and things like that. So yeah. Any questions, comments, feedback?
I have nation.
Anyone
Yeah,
interested in starting a nation?
Yeah, we
No,
did that.
one of the questions I have on this with regards to IDEP. I mean, we've been here for almost 20 years, and we trained so many people. We went to so many areas, but it's at the moment it's still kind of like program based, right? So we went to Aceh up to 2009, and then done. We had no connections with the communities whatsoever as of today. So I'm kind of like thinking maybe with these beat nations we can actually create from the one that we have, and then through time we
Yeah.
can really like build up either EDEP nations or permaculture nations or whatever. Yeah,
And also, I'm thinking that it's most of the flow of community accompaniment that we do is that whenever the funding gone, I mean like whenever the funding finished, we're finished. Like we don't engage anymore with the communities. So I'm thinking like if the nations can be created and everyone can generate kind of like automated income, then we can still come like provide services, accompaniment, and development programs.
So yeah, so my questions on that, you mentioned about that the nations would have a certain regulations and rules of the games, right? So how do we do that in the app? Does it start with a few people setting up a nation? Do we need a required numbers of persons to set up a nation? Or I can just write, I want to make it a nation, and then start inviting everybody out. And then how do the legalities or the apa namanya ya, the system is built?
Yeah, the governance system.
Yeah, the government.
Yeah. Well, so there's two things that I would say. Is one, yeah, you can actually go on the app and you can create a nation, and you can start getting people to start using it. And basically right now what's set up though is just the chat feature and the wallet, so you can receive tokens and send tokens, and the create a nation. So that's like the level that it's at right now. You saw on the roadmap, right? Like later, more things will come. But what you can do right now off the app is start developing your ideas of what your needs are, and like creating a theoretical project of how that use case would apply. You know, what are your ideas? Because right now it's like it's kind of in the dreaming stage. It's in the dreaming and theorizing phase of what is the concept that we want to create. And you know, perhaps even you can go and enter into with these ideas the Bitnation incubator competition. And you know, so the more that you ideate, you have a chance to enter a competition and win a competition. Or even also, like, if you guys want to become like a Bitnation ambassador for representing, you know, the nonprofit NGO world in Indonesia, for example, you can, and you can actually start, if you start like teaching people and or posting ideas, videos about your ideas and things like that, you can actually start earning tokens that way as well and participating. So there's a few different ways to interact, but I would say the first start is just start researching and understanding, and start ideating.
And
your ideas for it.
my question is actually from the economic factors, like how then big nations can at least generate capitals for all of the citizens to do something for replacing banking system, we need to also have at least a capital to start something with the community, so the community can, maintain their livelihood or, sustain.
Yeah, so there's these things called DAOs, which are like decentralized organizations, and that's what Tomampitano is really interested in too. So we want to create little micro enterprises or little funds that then distribute for activities and can track any kind of profit or income generated, and then distribute it back to the members of that decentralized organization. And so, but like any banking system, you don't usually, if you start a bank account, you don't usually have capital in your bank account once you start it, right? You need to put it in there.
Yeah.
So we would need to like inject some funds into it, and maybe, who knows? Like I wonder if there's any grants out there for nonprofits to do these types of things. Like, hey, we want to experiment with new emerging tech to make our systems better, more efficient, transparent. The transparent use of funds. Utilizing blockchain technology.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty good use case. You know what I mean? Like, so I wonder also if there's ways to get grants, and then those grants can seed. Even Bitnation is willing to seed incubated nations, right? So that could be a way.
So part of nations is that your livelihood is secure. You know what I mean, right? It's
Yeah.
not only have an identity, but also have
Right.
something to do and contribute to.
Yeah, because some nations that are registered believe in universal basic income, for example. That every citizen has the right to a basic income level, and that gets distributed through the nation. And so if you decide that as your way of governance, I mean, obviously you have to figure out how that works, but the technology is being developed alongside that to hopefully allow that to happen.
Who will the authority to provide the nation, the centralized nation?
Who has the authority? Well, we all do. So it's up to us. So that's why they're called decentralized, borderless, voluntary nations. So if you create a nation, it's voluntary for me if I can join or not, or leave if I want to leave. If I say, hey, this is actually not working for me, I just want to go, then I can leave. We are our own central. That's the meaning of sovereignty.
Crazy idea. There's a very powerful passport like Singapore, and there's like less powerful like Indonesia, right? And with Bitnations trying to make a passport, is it a Bitnation passport or a like country Taman-Petani passport, for instance? So how do you become a strong Bitnations countries? And
How we beat the existing nation?
All of the
Yeah,
nations have the same level of diplomacy.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like Bitnation is actually approaching nation states to say you need to be able to, at least for their Bitnation passport right now, Taman-Petani passport, I don't know, like that's a little bit different, but for their Bitnation passport right now, they're actually approaching governments to make them accept them, to
Yeah, so-
negotiate.
okay. So Bitnations is actually a country within the Pangea.
Yeah, Bitnation is a nation within
Within the
the
Pangea.
Pangea network.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you can choose to. So basically, they're saying you can either utilize our technology. You don't have to be necessarily have a passport with Bitnation necessarily. You can utilize your technology, start your own nations, or you can join our nations, or you can do both. So you can
So
join
we
multiple
can-
nations.
We can download Pangea, for instance, but we don't have to be a member of the nation.
Right, but Bitnation is a nation that's listed in our nation.
So now,
Just a cluster.
yeah, that's like the first nations in the Pangea, right? We call it founders, the founders of the system.
Pioneer.
So at the moment, these big nations is approaching real government passport and legalities and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
So what about the other nations within the Pangea?
I don't.
Do they have to work alone by themselves? Like Taman Katano, do we have to approach the local notary, for instance?
Bitnation is offering support
Okay.
within their means. So they're offering, right now, and we'll have to see. It's still early days how much support they really are. But to help develop ideas, to provide resources, to provide legal support if needed. Like they're actually offering that, and we can approach them and say how much support can you actually get.
Okay.
But I
But we
think
don't have to be the member of the nations yet.
I have not seen anything about that, so I don't think so. But yeah, once you are a user of their application, of their technology, so I think like that right now, because it's so early stage, that we actually have a chance to be, like founding nations, like early stage nations, pioneer nations. Yay! Cool.
Very exciting.
Thanks, guys.
Thank
And,
you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Nice one.
If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm going to be doing this. This was my first ever talk. I'm going to be doing another one on Monday at Tumakatanu for Sandy's networking event night. You guys are all welcome to come if you want. But yeah, and I'm happy if we want to arrange another time where we get together and we download the app, and I can help teach how to get your cryptocurrency and your tokens, and I can airdrop you some tokens for free. I'm happy to do that. It's just there wasn't enough time today to do that. Interested?
Let me know, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe I'll get your guys' contact details from Avi, and we can set up another session where I can give you some free tokens and we can
we
play.
fight on Bitnation.
Avi Nation.
A more technical question, Mel.
Yeah.
Because we got hooked. Yeah, basically we are interested, and that you're also going to give offer to support and everything. Do we need to have some kind of like compensation or reward for your time and everything, or is it part of the Bitnation ambassador stuff?
Yeah, it's part of the ambassador stuff. So I'm doing this because I just want to talk about it with people, and yeah, I don't need to be.
So basically voluntarily.
Yeah.
Mel, sorry I have to shoot, but I'm interested also to be part maybe of the Taman Petano.
Yeah, cool.
We can talk about it later.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a lunch in Seminyak, I need to go.
Oh, okay. Thank you for coming, and yeah, thanks for your inputs and questions.
Sorry, I was a bit like...
No, it's good.
Yeah,
Like all this stuff for me, I think it's important to do like a healthy examination. Like question everything.
I agree. Yeah.
Question everything, and
Yeah.
for me, I'm not like, I'm a Bitnation ambassador, but I'm also questioning everything.
I would love to do that, what you just offered to all of us, like this training session on airdropping and all this.
Okay, cool.
Let,
Alright.
let me know when you would do that.
Definitely keep you posted.
Yeah.
We'll do that. We'll get really practical and see the app.
Yeah.
Some of the app, like sometimes it's a little glitchy and stuff too, so it's like still really early days. I just want to warn you guys.
It's okay.
We're all learning. It's fantastic what they're doing. It's fantastic. I mean, I like it that people all over the world, different places. I think they have that common goal of making things smoother in the society, less corrupt, less this, less that. A good,
Yeah.
a better society. So it's good. That's the overarching goal.
It's good because technology is in the hands of those who use it, so it can be used for good and bad. So
Exactly.
I just kind of want to bring the good guys up. All right.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Makasih,
Bye,
Jerome.
Thank you.
Right.
Sandy, see you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Terima kasih. All the best.
Thank
You
Bye-bye.
have my number, yeah?
Yeah.
When you're going to do this meeting?
I'll let you know.
Udah
I'm
mati.
in Jakarta until Tuesday. Well, I'm leaving tomorrow. The day after tomorrow. But
It will be after that. It will be next week.
yeah, but
Oh, yeah?
after Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right.
Whose
Are
phone is
you,
this?
are you on
my phone.
Family Synergy?
Can I get the recording?
Not
So
sure.
we're gonna combine the recording
Thank
to
you.
Are
the
you
video.
on Family Synergy events?
Lisa?
Yeah.